Hi, I'm Padgett from UBTV, and today this video is going to be slightly different. On the 16th of September of this year, Mahsa Amini was murdered by the morality police in Iran. Following that, there have been weeks of protests and civil unrest. Today, I've had the pleasure of interviewing two students who are both Iranian and both studying here at Bristol University. For these girls' safety, we have decided to not include their image in the video, so please do listen and hear their story. Where were you when you found out about the death of Mahsa Amini and the ensuing protests? What was that like being in Bristol?
I was actually back at home when we heard everything, and we actually heard it through social media and like the Iranian news rather than, the British media, of course. And to be honest, I didn't think it was going to be like a big thing coming out of it, because this has been happening for 43 years, so it's not something new. Like they kill women all the time and murder them brutally and rape and assault them all the time. So I didn't think that there would be such a big uprising coming from it, but I think that was kind of like the last straw because she was just so innocent and so young.
I was also at home, but it was around the same time as the Queen died. And I remember just checking through social media all the time, and there was just nothing about it. And then I went on, I think it was the BBC, and it was just like 10, 15 different posts about the Queen, and then absolutely nothing on it. But again, it's not really surprising, considering we've kind of just grown up knowing that it's not going to really be covered.
What do you guys think about the compulsory hijab law?
I think it's fundamentally wrong, because everyone should have the freedom to choose what to wear. And there are countries where you're not allowed to wear hijab, which is also wrong. But what we really want and what people are actually fighting for is just the freedom to choose how you want to dress and how you want to present yourself, and freedom of speech. Like if you want to say something that's against the government, you want to be able to have the right to do so without, being held captive or, whatever else they do.
I think also at the moment everyone's kind of trying to make it a religious issue, whereas it's just, like she said, like it's just more of a human rights and just basic things that we want to choose. And it's kind of similar to the abortion laws that's been going on the past year as well. It's just like a woman's choice to choose what they want to do with their body, whether that's clothes or more extreme. I think it's kind of more Western. The spin on it that Western countries are putting on it is that we kind of can't talk about it because it'll alienate a certain group of people, which is also kind of the response that the uni had when we went to them with it. But I think if you actually ask people who are Muslim, they also agree it's not something that's in the laws of Islam to like force everyone, and it's not something that if you're calling your country a fundamentally like Islamic state, it's not, it's not something that you should be doing.
The Guardian said yesterday, I read that there's been like a 200 death count of the protests estimated. What's it been like being here and watching like that happen so far away?
I think we're all feeling quite helpless. Having spoken to all of our friends, family here and over there, we all just feel quite helpless because there isn't really that much we can do other than try to raise awareness over here and get the media attention on it to try and force, MPs and just the government in general to give a response and to force this government to go, because we do need the West to be behind that. And I think that sometimes we feel as though, that the rest of the world is just continuing as normal when this is all happening, which does happen to every country. Whenever there's anything happening in a country, the rest of the world just kind of carries on, but I think we're just trying to do our part, and sometimes it's really hard to know what we can do.
Yeah, I think it's weird because in other events when people put things on social media, they're like, what are you doing? It's kind of just performative, but at this point it's kind of all we can do. So I think even for me, I feel guilty if I go one day without posting something about it. And then you kind of have to step back, and it's like survivor's guilt kind of thing of like, why are we out of it when so many people aren't? And also they've cut off internet on and off. They do it quite a lot they kind of do mass killings and then they bring it back, publish the numbers, and then it's just weird. So it's been quite hard to get in touch with family.
I was going to ask you more about the media blackouts, because we've sort of heard bits and pieces about it. What's your understanding of that, and what is it like for people you know back in Iran?
In previous years, anytime there is any sort of uprising, they just take away the internet fully, or like bring it down, and it's really hard to access the internet. When they want to kill a lot of people and they don't want people to sort of talk about it or to organise more protests, so they just take the internet away, so it's harder for people to communicate with, like, between themselves and with the outside world. So I think seeing that happen, we all just kind of knew what was going to happen, which makes everyone quite anxious, really, because you never know how many people they're going to kill, and or what else they're going to be doing that we're not going to know about for quite a while. And even with the numbers now saying it's over 200, it's probably double that, and no one gets told that, and people's bodies go missing.
I think another thing is, even if it was just the 200 killed, that doesn't take into account I'm sure it's about 1,000 people who have been taken in, arrested, tortured, which I'd say is worse, because then they have to live with that. And it's just, it's the anxiety of not knowing where your kid is or where your mum is until you either see their body or they actually come home.
My last question for you was going to be, there's been a lot of speculation about how this has evolved from just being about Mahsa Amini to potentially people are calling for the end of the regime in Iran. What's your opinion on that?
People have been calling for this regime to go because it's a dictatorship. So people have been trying to get it to just leave and for a new government to come about where there's democracy for a really long time, probably since it started, over 40 years ago. And I think what's different this time is that we're seeing women lead the movement and young people lead the movement. Every day we see this, a 15-year-old girl has been killed or a 16-year-old girl has been raped and assaulted, and then, her body's been found somewhere. And it's really upsetting to see, but at the same time, I think this is the start of something that's going to inspire other countries. This is a movement that's this time is different to any other. It's led by women and it's led by people, like really young people. So we are hoping that it comes to fruition, because we want everyone else to see this as a moment of women taking back the power that they would, the power that was taken away from them for decades.
I think it's also quite hard to actually imagine it as like a free country, and there's always a thought of what, could something worse come into place, but I think the consensus is that could it really get worse than this right now? I don't know, it's just weird for me to think that I could go and, everything would be just like it is here, like how our parents would have known it before the revolution, but I don't know, I really can't think of how it would be.